We're still a month away from the NFL draft, and you're probably sick of the discourse around guys like Fernando Mendoza, Jeremiah Love, Ruben Bain, and all the top prospects. So instead, today, let's give you my all underrated team, talking about players that are being slept on at every position in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube and follow us on socials at Best Available YT. If you're looking for another way to support the channel, consider becoming a member. I'll leave details to that in the episode description. But if you are a huge fan of the NFL draft, you do get full access to my NFL draft big board. I want to give a shout out to Daniel, who is our latest member to subscribe. Immediately requested access to that big board. I know what kind of sicko he is. He's one of ours. So appreciate you, Daniel, for supporting. And again, if you want to support the channel, consider becoming that member. Details to that in the episode description, just right below this video. I'm approaching 160 prospects I've watched and graded for this draft class. And at this point, there's a few players that I've ended up really liking that aren't getting the buzz I was, expecting or, I think they deserve. So I wanted to make this video to highlight a few of these players. So we're going to go through every position. We are going to group offensive alignment into one kind of unit. But let's go ahead and get started with quarterback, because I know quarterback isn't the sexiest position this year. It's kind of a one quarterback race, although if you ask some people, it's a two quarterback race. But for me, of all the guys that not getting media attention, Luke Altmyer out of Illinois is a name I at least wanted to give some time to. I don't think he's going to be a starter in the NFL. And frankly, in this class, it's hard to pick an underrated guy that you think is going to develop into a starter. But if you want like a top tier backup, that is what Altmyer is in my eyes. One of the number one things that we talk about nowadays for quarterbacks as draft prospects is, did they play a lot in college? And for Altmyer, that is definitely the case. He was a 3-year starter and I believe 2 or 3-time captain for the Illini. And then you turn on the tape, he's a guy I've been watching for the past few years and always kind of liked. He's someone that's very instinctive. He's pretty athletic. I love that he knows how throwing windows work. He can throw with decent to solid timing, but he just understands kind of how coverages operate. One of my favorite traits is he'll get ready to throw, and then he sees maybe it's a linebacker that crept up, or a defensive lineman just suddenly back out into coverage that he's not expecting. And he can read that pretty comfortably for a 6'2 quarterback. And, sometimes these quote unquote shorter guys have trouble seeing over their offensive line, but he just has a really good feel for where coverage players are on the defense. Now, he may not be like a rocket arm quarterback, but I think he can throw with good anticipation, his effort, but he can do it. There's a few instances I saw where he is able to drive the football down the field. I just think all in all, he's a really solid, rock solid backup quarterback that can do a handful of things for you so that if he does have to play, it's not going to destroy your offense. I do think it's so stereotypical, but a Shanahan style coaching tree where you don't need the most athletically toolsy quarterback, that's where Altmyer could find a really nice home. I'm just very curious to see where he lands. You could maybe have me say Drew Aller for this conversation of underrated, but he gets enough attention in my eyes. I wanted to make sure we spent some time on Altmyer. I just think he is, rock solid in a underwhelming quarterback class. I've got a name maybe you haven't heard of yet at running back for me. It's Jamari Taylor out of Virginia. Someone whose tape I turned on and I love. And just disclosure on my end, when it comes to running backs, I really, really value contact balance. I love guys that can just stay upright through, weaker tackle attempts, lower their pads, drive their feet through contact, and keep picking up extra yards. And you wouldn't expect that from Jamari Taylor at 5'10", 199. But he can be a little bit of a bulldozer. He has excellent pad level at the point of attack. He loves throwing his shoulder into contact and just kind of having guys drape off of him. And on top of that, he moves pretty well for that size. He has some effectiveness as a route runner, as a pass catching back. There are some drop issues, but the way he moves makes me feel like he could have a more diverse route tree than the average running back. He's also got good ball security with only 2 career fumbles. He's pretty patient and can get skinny through holes, so he has a little bit of vision. He's not going to be a home run hitter. That top end play speed just is not there for what you would think from a smaller running back. I think that limited size is going to hurt him in pass pro, but I wouldn't discount that he gets good at it with the way that he runs. And he is willing to lower his pads in pass protection. Not the perfect running back by any means, and a lot of teams won't love having a smaller contact balance type of back. If they go smaller, typically they want some kind of scat back like DeMond Claiborne or one of those guys. But for me, I just love a running back that's willing to play physical regardless of their size. And pound for pound, man, Jamari Taylor deserves a ton of credit for how he runs. Maybe you could go with Jeremy Bernard for wide receiver, but I think he's getting plenty of shine and deservedly so. So I'm going to give a little bit of a homer pick, but this is one I'm really standing on business on. It is Elijah Sarratt out of Indiana. Love that Omar Cooper's getting all this buzz. It would be really cool to see him be a first round pick. Personally, I think top 50 is more than okay, but I also think Sarratt should go in the top 50. This is a guy that does a lot of the dirty work that I don't think a lot of outside receivers, it's not going to be flashy, right? He's a really good blocker. He's really, quick against more physical corners. He's just quickness, great fluidity. And then on top of that, when he's not able to create separation, he's got this really impressive body control to, haul in some pretty damn tough catches. I just think he's this really complete, not a burner, but he is such a good possession wide receiver. The good frame at 6'2 and a half, 210, 31 and a quarter inch arms. He's not a height, weight, speed guy by any means, but he's just so solidly built and moves really well that he's going to be a consistent separator and be a really nice possession receiver for an offense. I keep thinking of guys like Romeo Doubs as one of these. Yeah, he's not the flashiest receiver, but he keeps getting open and puts up numbers. I could see Sarratt having a role like that. I just think he's fallen because Cooper got a lot of shine in this draft process. I think Sarratt wasn't as impactful in the playoff or postseason as people were hoping for, but I think that hamstring he was kind of playing through. He missed a few games this season with that nagging hamstring injury. Kind of didn't look the same, even though he was effective during the postseason run. Just don't think people are giving him enough credit. I think he is a phenomenal receiver, and I mean, dude, his nickname's Waffle House. It means he's always open. And I from having watched him the last couple of years at Indiana, I just think this is a pro-ready wide receiver and could have gone pro last year. I actually had a different name written down for tight end, but literally as we're recording this, I just said, screw it, we're doing an audible. Because I watched Dallin Bentley out of Utah last night, and I don't think he's perfect by any means, but man, am I fascinated by him. This is a dense frame at 6'4", 253 pounds. He's got 33 plus inch arms, a 9.31 relative athletic score. He just checks a lot of these size athletic boxes, and then you watch him. What I really like, I mean, I just watched a clip of him just stiff arming a guy into oblivion after the catch. He has a pretty long catch radius. He can high point footballs, moves pretty well up the seam. He's actually pretty good play speed wise. The blocking needs work, but I'm not too concerned about it because I think there's some effort there and he has the size to do so. It just feels like we really need to work on the technique and leg drive to really unlock that part of his game. So he may not be a true starter right away, but with the way that NFL offenses are going towards 12 and 13 personnel more and more, having more tight ends on your team is crucial. And Bentley can fill a couple of roles in those personnel sets where I just think as he continues to get more comfortable as a blocker, this is a guy that's going to be a very, very fun player to watch. We've talked about this guy already on the channel at offensive line, but I just can't get enough of him. It's Jalen Farmer out of Kentucky. A lot of really deserving names on this list, but I'm just curious because it feels like the ones people get excited about, everyone already knows about, but I keep planting my flag that like Farmer's the truth. Justice Mosqueda, my colleague at Draft Talk and Acme Packing Company, was the first guy to point this out, and then I went back and watched the film, and I was like, oh, yeah. 9.68 relative athletic score, 34 and a quarter inch arms for a guard is pretty crazy. He's an absolute bulldozer in the run game. And it's funny, like good pad level, the hands need a bit of work, but his core and upper body strength are ridiculous. And then he brings his legs through that contact, and he can just, when he engages with a defender in the run game, he can wash them out all the way across the field. He's just one of those really powerful players that can make a lot of defenders look silly as he's driving them out of the way and clearing things to the running back. Like this is a guy that's going to make running backs very, very happy at the NFL level. And that play strength shows up as well with his anchor where he can get a wide base and prevent bull rushes. He's got some work to do on his pass pro. His feet look a little lumbering at times. I think he's a little bit stiff. But if he can handle bull rushes and make that kind of, impact in the run game, like this is an instant starter in my eyes at the NFL level at guard. And someone that can, he's going to take some lumps as a pass rusher. Maybe some clips go viral. That always bothers me with offensive line evaluation. We focus on one clip of a guy getting burnt and just assume he sucks. But Farmer is one of these players. I just think there's not a lot of guys in this class that are moving bodies like him in the run game. And I just think we're going to continue hammering his name. I think he's going to get drafted way earlier than consensus is expecting. Moving on to the defensive line, another guy we've talked about on this channel a bit. I would talk about Big Citrus, but man, he has plenty of lovers already. It's DeMonte Capehart out of Clemson for me, who I just think the consensus is way too behind on. I think this guy has a legit shot at being a day two pick, even if he's being viewed as a top one or outside of the top 100 by a lot of big boards. Former 5-star out of IMG Academy. That's a big, hey, look at this guy. That's clearly a freak athlete. But he's had to spend a lot of time behind some really talented defensive linemen and defensive tackles at Clemson, most notably this year with Peter Woods. But man, when he is on the field, this is a guy that has excellent play strength. And when he puts all of it together after the snap, he can just dominate interior offensive linemen, drive them into the running back in the backfield or into the quarterback's lap. He's just got this really rare blend of, twitch and power off the snap. And the funny thing is, I think he's a 4 or 5 year, not starter, but 5-year contributor at Clemson. So he's been there for a while. And he's someone that still needs work on technique, but I just think it's because he hasn't played a whole lot. He's brings so much power to his game. Whether it's in the upper body or lower body, he's got decent enough lateral quickness to sidestep guys when they're really trying to focus on him, meeting him at the point of attack because he's going to meet you with power. So he can sidestep guys at times and catch them lunging. But we just got to work on the hands. We got to work on a pass rush bag, work on some moves there. I'm just so excited. I think he's one of these players, even at 313 pounds, because he has the length and play strength. He can play all over the line, whether it is nose, whether it is 3-tech. I'm very curious to see what home he ends up in. I think whatever team gets him, they're going to be much more excited about him once he's actually on the field than I think they might realize. There's a lot of edges we can talk about, and a lot of them are getting a lot of love. Even some of these day two guys, like whether it's Gabe Akis or Malachi Lawrence. I'm kind of floored we're not talking more about Dennis-Sutton out of Penn State. Someone I've had my eye on for a while. I got to see him in person on the field at the Big Ten Championship while I worked with Yahoo and Rivals, and I was like, this cat looks different. He comes in at nearly 6'6", 256 pounds, almost 33.5-inch arms, 9.93 relative athletic score, former 5-star recruit, just a freak athlete. And, when you watch the tape, he is more of an edge setter. He's a big body. He's going to have shock with his hands, meet you at the point of contact. But he's also got a few pass rush moves that allow him to separate and generate pressures and sacks on the quarterback. I think he's more athletic on the field than he's given credit for. Everyone's like, yeah, he's kind of like a, workout wonder. But that athleticism does show up a bit. He is effective at ripping the ball out, 7 career forced fumbles. And I think the reason I'm so confused about him, not being a hyped up edge is I feel like it does check a lot of boxes for what NFL teams want in a potential NFL player. He's played 55 games in college. He has 23.5 career sacks, those 7 forced fumbles, a pair of interceptions, 34.5 tackles for loss. He's a terrific athlete. He's got tons of size. All of these things are checking boxes for me for what NFL teams want. And I think the weaknesses of his game are things that you can kind of get over as an NFL team and just put him in a specific role. I think him as an early down edge setter with some pass rushing juice, his size and athletic profile, I think he belongs in a conversation with some of these day two edges that a lot of people just aren't talking about right now. But I feel like by the time draft comes around, either the media is going to catch up or they're going to be really surprised when Dennis-Sutton's name is called on day 2. At linebacker, damn it, this one's for me. I don't care what anyone else has to say. I love Torian York out of Texas A&M. He is going to get knocked a lot for his size at 5'11" and 226 pounds with only 30-inch arms. I don't care because I watched this guy and I think this is one tough as hell dude at linebacker. Got to talk to him at the NFL Combine and I was like, what trait stands out to you? Or what are you most proud of displaying to NFL teams? And he was immediately just like, stayed healthy. I never missed a game in my entire career playing in the SEC. I don't think many people can say that. He's like, I've had my hand stepped on. I've battled through multiple injuries and just kept playing. And I was like, you know what? That is something to be really proud of, especially at that size. He's one of the most competitive as hell linebackers in this class. Along with having really, really good eyes, he's one of these post-snap processors that reads his keys, reads where the ball is going, and just feels that very quickly, which really helps him with that limited size. But he's just not afraid either. He is going to he's going to run through ball carriers, not stop at them, and then try and drive his feet. He's going to throw a shoulder into blockers because he's just not afraid of, getting washed out. Like, he knows he's going to get beat sometimes because of his limited size, but he's going to make you work for it. And I really love that. Maybe he's not a starter at the NFL level because of those lack of measurements, but at the very least, in my eyes, he's going to be a special teams demon, whether it's on kickoff or kickoff return or punt or anything. I just think he's going to be really effective there. And then he can work his way into some sub packages. I love the tenacity. I love that he really carries like that, playing through knocks on his shoulder. Like, just a huge fan of the way he plays the game and how he reacts. He's very instinctive and very tenacious. Those are two traits I absolutely need in my off-ball linebackers. And maybe he's not the biggest guy, but I'll bet on him to at least stay around the league for a while because those traits are hard to coach. Such a deep cornerback class, and I was really struggling to talk about the one guy that I want to talk about in the all underrated team because there's a lot of guys I really like. But I'm going to go back to the well on a guy I keep talking about because it is Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State. I love a lengthy cornerback, and he shows up at 6'2", 89 pounds, almost 33-inch arms. Like, that is a long, lengthy, feisty corner. There's a lot of concerns about him from his 2024 season when he was the most penalized player in college football, which could not stop grabbing at the catch point. And what I love about him is that he managed to drop those penalty numbers in 2025, but didn't lose that tenacity because it is such a big part of his game. He wants to disrupt you off the line of scrimmage. He wants to attack you at the catch point. And then he's got these legit ball skills once he's attacking the football that makes him such a sticky, dangerous, lengthy corner when he's playing at his best. On top of that, he's got this play speed and patience from a trail technique where he knows, like, hey, this guy might have initially beaten me off off my press alignment. Maybe he had a nice release on me, but I've got the play speed and length that I can just sit in his back pocket. And as that ball comes, I can track that football and attack it instead of getting beat over the top. And that lends into one of my other traits I really liked about him this past year is his mental toughness. This is a guy, even dating back to last year, like, you take your lumps with your penalties or a missed interception or allow a catch. And it just felt like mentally he's always wired the right way to bounce back. I see too many players get down on themselves after a bad play, and it really hurts their overall play. Not the case with Igbinosun. This is a guy with that mental and physical toughness combined with that frame. I think he's going to succeed in the NFL. It may not always be pretty, but there are defenses in the NFL that do not care if you keep committing DPI. Because if you can just disrupt a number one receiver with your size and athletic ability, you are a very, very valuable asset in the NFL today. So I'm going to bet on the traits, and I'm going to bet on the way he's wired. I think Igbinosun's going to be, end up being one of the best corners in this class, even if we're not talking about him enough as we should. And then wrapping up the episode with safety. There's a lot of safeties I really, really like in this class, but so many of them are either box guys or slots or one of these versatile hybrid guys. I'm going to talk about Bud Clark here because I think in a group of all of those types of safeties, we don't have a lot of true free safeties, and I think Bud Clark is one of those. He's very slender. He's 6'1". He's 188 pounds. He looks more like a corner and has some like corner-like movement skills where he can be sticky in coverage. But this is a dude that loves attacking the football and going after it to get turnovers. Not only does he have really impressive downhill explosiveness and trigger to jump passes, but he also has that post-snap recognition of, like, I'm diagnosing the route combinations, I'm reading the quarterback's eyes. This is where he's going to want to go based on the coverage that we're running, and then he's clicking to that throw before it feels like the quarterback's even throwing it at times. That's just the kind of cerebral player we're dealing with Bud Clark, and you would expect that. He's on the older end. I think he played 6 seasons at TCU, so you would expect all that playing time and just time in a college program that you get comfortable with that. But the fact that he can combine that with the play speed and stickiness and movement skills for a smaller safety really checks the boxes of a true free safety for me. And when he does have to fill the run, he is a little smaller and he might miss some tackles, but he's going in with great effort. He's flying downhill. He's getting super low. He's trying to trip them up. The tackling technique maybe could use a bit of work, but at least the effort is there and the willingness in run support. I think he's going to be, a very fun player for a team that needs a ball hawk in their secondary. And that'll do it for today's episode of our all underrated list. Who's your most underrated prospect? Let me know in the comments. I'm very curious to see what other names are out there because there might be some I still agree with you on. Some tough omissions in this video. I wish I could talk about maybe 12, 15 more guys. So thank you so much for watching. We'll be back on Monday. Another mock draft. We'll have draft talk talking about edges, which will be a very exciting episode next week. And we got some other stuff planned in the coming week. So be subscribed if you're not already. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a great weekend. Take care.